With the recent release of the new installment in the franchise, Battlefield 2042, I thought of going back to Battlefield 5 and give it another try, especially that the release of the game wasn't that great. So in this review, I'll be going through the game and reviewing all of its different modes to see how it stacks up and if it's still worth it in 2022. What's up everyone and welcome to a new video. My name is Omar with Real Gamer Review, and today we are reviewing Battlefield 5 almost 3 years after its release. If you are watching my channel for the first time, a like and a subscribe would be hugely appreciated. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Battlefield 5 is a first-person shooter video game developed by DICE and published by Electronic Arts. It is considered to be the 16th installment in the Battlefield series and the successor to 2016's Battlefield 1. The game was released worldwide for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One on November 20, 2018. It works also on the new-gen consoles, Xbox Series and PS5 in backwards compatibility mode with no noticeable upgrades, but more on that later. The game is based on World War II and is a thematic continuation of its World War I based precursor Battlefield 1. The campaign this time around is a bit similar to the previous installment Battlefield 1, and it's divided into multiple different small stories that you get to play in any order you like. But this time around, it is slightly different as some of those stories feels a bit like a multiplayer map. Let me explain a bit more. So in some of the stories you start in a big size map and you got a number of main objectives scattered around. The game gives you the freedom to play them in any order you want. Also, the map contains different types of vehicles, and in some maps planes are available to move around faster due to the large size of the landscape. A lot of the stories available in the campaign this time around rely heavily on stealth, which is not that great to be honest, as it doesn't play to the series' strength. The gameplay itself is very similar compared to the last installment Battlefield 1 when it comes to the overall mechanics like character movement, weapons, recoil, time to kill. Only a few minor additions to the character movement were added. So the overall campaign I would say is good, but it can become a bit boring if you are more into the kind of fast-paced action shooters like Call of Duty series or even Battlefield 3 and 4. EAgames took another approach to the franchise with Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5. It is not necessarily a bad thing, but for me and a pretty big number of the fans out there, the old style that was implemented in the previous installments like Battlefield 3 and 4 were much better, especially from the single-player campaign perspective. During the gameplay of the campaign story, you will be going around a few different countries and you will be using multiple vehicle, gadgets and weapons. So at least there is some variety when it comes to the campaign missions. Coming to the multiplayer part, where probably most of the players are when it comes to first-person shooters, Battlefield 5 has a number of different modes when it comes to the multiplayer. Some of them are kind of dead in 2022 and some are still going strong. I'll try to mention and explain a bit about each different mode so you can get a better idea about most of them. First, we have Strategic Conquest, which is the classic Battlefield mode, up to 64 players, where the battle is on a massive scale between two teams with huge maps, where you can use as well a number of different vehicles in combat. The main objective for each team is to capture and hold various objectives. Next, we have Tactical Conquest, with almost the same size as Strategic Conquest with up to 64 players. You and your team have to capture and hold the majority of flags and eliminate enemy troops to win. And also in this mode the maps are huge and you are able to use different types of vehicles. The third mode is Outposts, and in this mode you'll need to construct radio towers and keep them safe. And the team that reaches the recruit limit wins. Next we have the Pacific War. This mode is almost a full-scale war where you and your team mostly raid tropical bases where you have to conquest them and break through, and the other team has to defend it. And vice versa, of course. This mode as well has some huge maps which includes sea and land, and it is up to 64 players as well. This is one of the modes that is still going strong in 2022. Next we have Breakthrough, and it mainly consists of different sectors where you need to either defend or break through them along with your team. And also if you are on the attacker's team, you need to capture the flags as well. Team Deathmatch, which is the basic mode in most online multiplayers, where you have two teams and the team with the highest overall kills score wins. But unfortunately, unlike the Call of Duty franchise, this mode is pretty dead in 2022 in Battlefield 5. Every time I try to connect to a deathmatch game, it's either not connecting or having maximum of 2 players. Last but not least, we have Grand Operations, which is the biggest multiplayer mode, as it takes place over multiple in-game days, where you and your team will be playing across several maps and the outcome of a day is carried over to the next one. And if the battle results are close, then both teams will have a final stand clash on the last in-game day. This is as well one of the longest multiplayer modes when it comes to time, as one Grand Operations multiplayer lasts around 55 minutes of gameplay. Coming to the graphics and visuals part, this is where Battlefield franchise always shines. And this is still the case when it comes to this installment. EA introduced over-the-top visuals with their engine Frostbite. It still looks amazing in 2022, the character models, environment, and the overall world of the game in both the single-player and multiplayer modes. As always, I would recommend for the best visual experience to play the game on PC, but still, this game looks amazing on consoles as well, especially on the PS5 and Xbox Series X, as it runs on a resolution of a dynamic 1800p with 60 frames per second on the PS5 and 4K with 60 frames per second on the Xbox Series X. The dynamic resolution was actually made for the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X, where it usually dipped on those consoles all the way down from 1800p to 1440p in visually demanding areas. But on the PS5 it is pretty constant on 1800p and 4K on the Xbox Series X. You can also play the game on the Xbox Series X with up to 120 frames per second, as it was added to the list that received the Xbox frame rate boost feature, but be aware that when doing that, the resolution goes all the way down to 1080p. As for the music and audio part, I would say that as always there are pretty nice music tracks that are presented throughout the campaign that will put you in the mood for the era of World War. As for the audio, where it comes to different guns, explosions, vehicles and overall gameplay audio, I can't say that there are any noticeable additions compared to Battlefield 1. Don't get me wrong, it is pretty good but nothing over the top. As always, I'll leave you now with a few clips so you can judge the audio yourselves.
All right, you boxer bolts, let's see what you've got.
Zerstören wir ihre Verteidigung.
Peter, wenn Sie so weitermachen, haben wir ein Problem.
Feuer erwidern! Jetzt!
Sie haben die Fenster besetzt!
So in 2022, Battlefield 5 came a long way from what was felt like a rushed, buggy game release. The game overall is good, but I wouldn't say that it has anything over the top, especially that the World War setup just feels a bit overused by now, and it started to get slightly boring. So I wouldn't recommend buying this game at full price. Either play it on one of the EAgames subscriptions available on consoles or PC, or try to grab it at a deal. Alright, time to wrap this up. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video or you learned something, then leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.